You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button on our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for August 12th, 2022. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we have submitted a request to the judge of podcasts to unseal the new podcast content. But until the judge rules, we are unable to recklessly speculate about current events. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
I promise zero speculation in this podcast today.
Yeah, there'll be no speculation.
Be speculating about anything.
No. Well, we can't talk about anything because the records are sealed. We've applied to have them unsealed. So
we had a listener write us and say you're not going to have any news to talk about. So here is a key lime pie recipe you could read on the air.
Yes.
And that's not going to work out for us, I'm afraid.
But it's a different rhythm this week for everyone because it is it's one. I don't want to call bombshells good things, but one kind of amazing turn of events that aren't terrible after another. And like, okay, well, that's great too. Just keep it coming.
We Democrats are not used to.
No. Since
election night 2016, we haven't been used to good news, really.
No, it's starvation diet. It's like, nah, I don't trust this little sip of water you're giving me. Like, no, it's okay. The Democrats in Congress actually passed something that's really good and makes people happy. And Joe Biden signed it. In fact, they did it a few times. So anyway, that's this week. And we just watched.
And the trajectory for Biden is on the rise.
Yeah.
And the trajectory for Mango Mussolini is on the decline.
In a sense, Charlie.
He's fundraising off of all this, but we're going to get into all that. The title of this podcast is The Warrant, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah.
We're going to get to all of that.
Yes, we are.
I want to start by saying that this whole mob reaction to it was not a raid, the execution of a search warrant at Mar-a-Lago.
To recover stolen classified property.
Yeah.
Allow
me to start by reading the headline of the week, in my personal opinion, by Jack Holmes at Yahoo News. Republican shock at the Trump FBI raid, which is not a raid, but the Republican shock at the Trump FBI raid makes sense if you ignore his entire adult life.
Yeah, which they do.
Mm-hmm. And we know that MAGA gets mad when the green M&M switches from heels to sneakers. So they are on a hair trigger to burst out in anger. And one commentator today said they're constantly being fed that hormone that makes you angry all day long.
Yes, they are. And they're doing it voluntarily. I mean, we've said this before. All they have to do is change the fucking channel. That's get off your fat ass, get the remote. Or if you have an old, boat anchor television, have your grandson or granddaughter go over and change the goddamn channel. Mm-hmm. But they won't. They can't. This is who they are.
An addiction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I said, this is not a raid. But Donald Trump should know what a raid looks like because there have been at least 5 raids since his quote unquote inauguration as quote unquote president.
Mm-hmm.
We have Paul Manafort, Michael Cohen, Roger Stone, Jeffrey Clark. All these guys were raided. Their door was knocked on at the crack of dawn or in the middle of the night. The FBI swarmed in with their, windbreakers on, ready to arrest somebody if necessary. And they did arrest Roger Stone.
Yes, they did. They arrested Paul Manafort, too.
They arrested Paul Manafort. Mm-hmm. So Donald Trump knows what a raid looks like. He's seen it on TV.
Yes.
This was not a raid. This was making sure he was out of town.
Right. Smart.
His attorneys were there.
Yep.
Presenting the attorneys with the warrant, executing the warrant, and leaving a receipt.
All that is true. But the picture in my head is from Goodfellas of Don Jr.'s girlfriend flushing all of his cocaine down the toilet. Why did you do that, Karen? Why did you do that? because that's about the level of, cunning at which these mopes operate.
Whole lot of lack of cunning this week, for sure. Yeah.
Well, and as we discussed, in our pre-show prep period, which goes on for hours, days usually,
sometimes.
Basically our entire life. The Democrats have a lot of assets in our bank, a lot of things about us that I'm proud. That we have a party that's basically a giant coalition of a bunch of different types of people that try to get along. We basically believe in the rule of law. We believe in helping people. We believe in passing laws to help people, and so on and so on and so on. The only thing the GOP, I mean the whole party has at this point, the only asset they have is a violent mob. Mm-hmm. They have nothing else. They have no policies at all. They have no proposals at all. They just have tens of millions of armed, violent morons who can be triggered into violent action by Donald Trump saying some shit or Fox News saying some shit. That's all they have. And that is sufficient to keep all of their elected officials in line because they know what happens to you if you step off the res even one toe. They've seen what happened to Liz Cheney. And they know what happens, now we're seeing people, trying to shoot up FBI headquarters. So, these guys, and this has been a long time coming, but at the end of the day, there's nothing left on the right but brown shirts to enforce anything. There's no principle, there's no theory, there's no idea of government. It's just a mob of brown shirts who will go wherever they're pointed.
And I wanted to mention, and this is just a mini Bible bitch, the most threatening verse in the entire Bible, in my opinion, which Republicans should be aware of and quake in the hearing of. It's from Luke 12. There is nothing that is hidden that shall not be revealed. And everyone should quake at those words because we all have secrets. We all do of one variety or another. But those who have really big secrets, like we know we lied to the FBI. We know we told them that we'd given them documents when we hadn't given them everything. We know we mishandled classified information about which our president, quote unquote, I don't want to be annoying with that, but the so-called president made the crime that he committed, allegedly, into a felony.
Yeah, he did it.
He wanted to punish Hillary.
Yeah, he wanted to retroactively punish her for the fact that retroactively things were made classified on her hard drive that weren't classified when she put them there. But it's, none of that nuance matters.
No.
What matters is getting Hillary on the rack and torturing her. That's what matters. That's the important thing. And so he signed a law. This is right up there with, what did he do during his first couple of years? He went around and found every single thing Barack Obama did and undid it.
Right.
The cake at his fucking inauguration was identical to Obama's cake. He got rid of the bike rental area or the bike giveaway area, the borrow a bike track, which cost nothing. Just because Obama did it, he and his followers loved it because he was taking a bucket of whitewash and erasing the Kenyan usurper from their memory, making it all go away and making liberals cry in the process. And that's really all they want. They want to see human beings like you and me suffer. And even if they didn't read the Bible, I'm sure at least one or two of these assholes is familiar with Johnny Cash. And Johnny Cash singing, what's done in the dark will be brought to the light should be a familiar lyric to at least some of these assholes.
Yep.
And that's what's happening. It's the noose is plural and not the literal one that they had rigged up for Mike Pence, but the figurative ones, the legal ones are all tightening all at the same time.
A couple other things just in historical context. The whole Back the Blue thing that has now been memory erased from their consciousness was a response to Black Lives Matter and proof positive that the only purpose for the police in their eyes is to control Black people.
Yeah.
Since 1865, that's what the police are for, is to endorse and perpetuate white supremacy. And I've been thinking about this all week as I've been watching all this Republican rage unfold. This is, for anyone who forgot, what January 6th was about. This is Trump unleashing the violent mob that he knows is violent and armed and ready to do damage while he sits and watches them do it. It is a repeat of that crime. So suddenly it's defund the FBI. Sitting Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to defund the FBI.
Mm-hmm. I think Elise Stefanik said the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, they were saying it at CPAC. They were saying it at CPAC before the search warrant because they were complaining at CPAC that the FBI has become the oppo arm of the Democrat Party. That was the quote. And at that time, that was just last weekend, I went, if your party wasn't committing crimes all the time, we wouldn't have this problem.
Well, and they're throwing around words like Gestapo and Stasi and KGB and Newt Gingrich calling them wolves. These wolves who want to eat us alive. And the funniest part of that, a listener sent us a clip of Joe Scarborough.
Yep.
Going, but Newt, you know better. Calling Newt a freak and damning him, and you know better. And Joe, just between you and me, Newt Gingrich has been a racist bomb-throwing scumbag for like 30 years, and you know it because you came in with the class of '94
with him. Yes.
So I know that your whole act on television, because you want people to forget that you were the biggest fluffer of Donald Trump ever. Until he talked out of school about your girlfriend, and that's when he turned on him. It had nothing to do with freedom or liberty or caring about this country. But you owe your career to people like Newt Gingrich. And you've known, as we all have known, for decades exactly what a lowlife, bomb-throwing scum Newt Gingrich is. So to hear him say, but Newt, it's an act. It's a Joe Scarborough act. It happens to be true. But pleading for, Newt Gingrich to listen to his conscience is a fool's errand, and Scarborough knows it. What impressed me about the immediate reaction of a search warrant was not, holy crap, he must have done some bad stuff, or he's innocent. Just wait for the man to stand up for his innocence.
That would have been what you would expect, right? How dare they, when we know Donald Trump did nothing wrong.
And we stand
That's what members of Congress should have said, right?
All of them. Well, not should have, because he's a criminal. And this is what happens, hopefully, in all the better movies. What happens to criminals? This is what happens to Al Capone. You get them on tax evasion. But what's fascinating is there was at least a 48-hour window after the Republican mob stormed the Capitol to murder Mike Pence and overthrow the election, that there was a pang of conscience seen rippling through the GOP. And Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell all said that Donald Trump's responsible for this. This is his doing, and he should be ashamed of himself and held responsible for it. There was no interval of conscience after this. Like iron filings lining up around a magnet, virtually the entire establishment of the Republican Party and conservative media instantly lined up behind Donald Trump. They collectively accused the FBI and the DOJ of every horror they could dream up. They planted evidence. It's a political hit job. This is communist Nazi level persecution.
No, they accused the FBI of planting evidence.
Yeah, and repeatedly. With nothing. And they use the who's the guy who always asks the question?
Oh, Cavuto. They Cavuto'd the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they planted evidence. It's possible we have no evidence they didn't plant evidence. There's all the hedging that you use to avoid being sued into the ground. But they're all clearly saying the FBI is the problem. The FBI is in the pocket of Hillary Clinton, and this is a political hit job. The worst thing that's ever happened to our democracy in its entire history. And this is what they teach the adage in law school, right? I mean, you know this. You were married to a lawyer. I was married to a lawyer. When the facts are on your side, you go with the facts. When the law is on your side, go with the law. And when the facts and the law go against you, pound the table. Create enough ruckus that no one notices that you're losing. And what's happening is they're losing. They're losing on every front. Remember how badly they freaked out when Mitt Romney lost?
Oh, yeah. They were crying and couldn't believe it and stopped watching Fox for 5 days because they thought Fox had lied to them. Yeah.
They betrayed us. And how completely they freaked out when it turned out the George Bush administration just collapsed in front of them. I mean, these people are driven a special bloodthirsty kind of insane when they lose anything. And right now they are losing everything. I have no predictions about the fall, but honestly, if trends continue, this might be Biden's best summer. It's certainly historically This is the most productive presidency in a decade.
Yes, it is.
It's done more for more people, and I'm
with
Obamacare aside.
Senate, with a 50-50 Senate, which is
50-50 Senate.
Yeah.
And as someone said, Kristen Sinema is not a senator. She's ransomware disguised as a senator.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even with all of that, Joe Biden, just by soldiering on and doing what's right and being compassionate, has gotten a whole bunch of stuff accomplished that make a whole bunch of people happy.
Mm-hmm.
And the Republican Party in the same period has managed to take away a woman's right to her own body and are coming after interracial marriage and are coming after gay marriage and coming after everything else that you and I value in a pluralistic society. Contraception.
That 99.9% of women use once in their life at least.
And if there's enough time for people to hold up human beings who are not paying attention to this at all, like, wait a minute, one party rioted to overthrow the government and has a criminal under investigation as their leader and has taken away my daughter and my wife's right to their own body.
Yep.
And the other guy
is willing to read my daughter's Facebook post.
Yes. And rat her out.
To track down her uterus. Yeah.
On the other hand, well, we're investing in climate change. We're investing in chips manufacture. We're actually going to get veterans the burn pit medical care that they deserve. Joe Biden standing up and just being a compassionate, decent human being and calling out Jon Stewart. No, this is about the signing of the bill.
Oh, signing the bill. Yeah.
And thanking Jon Stewart personally for holding everyone accountable. It's just like, God damn, what a nice guy. What a decent human being. He had
a wonderful photo op in Kentucky, he may be too much of a centrist for us in the primaries.
Yeah.
I'm going to say
was.
Right?
Absolutely.
And he was. But he is at his finest, comforting people who have lost something.
He is.
Absolutely. That is undeniable.
Well, and his son, I mean, the son who passed away is directly ties his heart to the veterans who are trying to get some goddamn health care for burn pit cancer.
Right.
And you can see it. I mean, that's not a thing you can fake. A good politician can fake almost anything, but that's not something you can fake. And if he just does that a lot and stop trying to pass things, I mean, pass as much as you can, but deconstruct what you've already passed and just beat it into the ground.
Well, the economy is responding to all of that with 0% inflation, gas below $4.
Yep.
And job growth that is miraculous.
Well, that the entire right-wing media had to scrap their, predictions.
Well, they now have to go back to critical race theory. That's all they've got.
Job growth is anemic, and that's why it's bad for Biden. Job growth was too robust. That's why it's bad for Biden.
That was it. Too many jobs.
And it's, at some point, and you and I have talked about this as well, it's ridiculous to try to treat them with any seriousness at all, other than the seriousness of a disease that needs to be contained and vaccinated against. But every opinion every Republican has is stupid and awful and a lying shit wrong. So I don't feel any need to sort of dissect individual turds to find out what kernels of corn are in each one. They're all bad. They're all bad. They're all shit. They're all bad.
That Driftglass, God.
But it is a great labor-saving device because I don't need to take anything anyone with an R after their name says seriously. They're either grifting or they're lying or they're covering up or they're deflecting or whatever. But they're all shit. So that's easy. I that just checks that right off my list. And I can get back to the business of trying to convince whatever idiots are in the middle still, whatever the forward losers are, that look at all the Democratic Party has done with zero Republican help.
Right.
Zero. Imagine if we had a few more Democrats in the House and a few more Democrats in the Senate. Imagine what we could do.
Yep. But it is amusing, Driftglass.
It is.
Not taking corn out of the poops, but as we predicted, what would happen as these iron filings begin to collapse again is a falling into both sides do it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm an independent, constitutional, conservative patriot who never liked the tweeting.
Yeah.
And even Brandon Straka at CPAC, who was the guy sitting in the orange jumpsuit jail cell at CPAC, and Marjorie Taylor Greene got down on her knees there's another image I didn't need to see.
Well, there's the witch in the wardrobe in this.
There's the witch in the wardrobe right there. Yeah. That's from our title. Yeah. He was then interviewed as to why he was doing this. Wearing a MAGA hat, said, both sides need to stop the hate.
From his performance art jail cell on the floor of a fascist convention with Viktor Orban giving a speech, 50 feet away. Really, it's kind of both sides, don't you think? No, I really don't.
Can we just forgive each other?
Yeah. Yeah. What was that? You were saying that like Dan Bongino was complaining that we're laughing at him, and
liberals are laughing at us. Yes,
it's true. It's
true. We are. Specifically at you, Dan Bongino.
Yeah, because you're all ridiculous. And so, and the last, and this applies not just to MAGA nuts, but other types of people in the world. But I've used this line 1,000 times, which is both sides do it remains the last refuge of the worst people. Because there's no place else for them to hide. There's no place else for them to go. They can either admit they were wrong and throw themselves off the cliff of their own lies, and hopefully they survive. But whatever happens, happens. Or they go into the panic room that has worked 1,000 times before, which is both sides are to blame. Both sides are wrong. I saw this during the entire Obama administration and before with people I knew in my professional life. It was lie, me rebut the lie, and second lie, me rebut the lie. Well, both sides are just equally bad. But it's, they're never going to give it up. They never were. This is not
Driftglass, this leads us to a mini discussion of the midterms.
Yeah, please, after you.
Donald Trump is only endorsing candidates who are splashy celebrities that he knows from television.
Right.
And they are failing in the Senate races all over the country. They're failing.
They're doing bad. They're doing badly. I'll say that. Yes, they are.
There was an article, I believe it was in Axios, saying that Donald Trump isn't paying attention to House races and that this was great news for Kevin McCarthy. Because
yeah.
I'm not kidding.
No.
Yeah, great news for Kevin McCarthy. Donald Trump isn't paying attention to House races. Yeah. And so all these Republican candidates will get elected because Donald Trump's not in those races. Well, the thing is, Donald Trump has taken all of the money that might have gone into those House races.
Womp womp,
and tapped out the small donors. And if Donald Trump isn't involved in your House race and you're a Trumper, you have no reason to turn out for the Republican Party. What you're seeing, this is the difference. There is a subtle difference. What I saw on Twitter this week with and I looked them up. I'm a constitutional conservative. I'm not a Republican. Back in the Bush days, that meant I'm not a Republican because I don't want to be associated with George W. Bush.
That's right.
Now it's the opposite. I'm not a Republican because the Republican Party is not supporting Donald Trump enough.
That's right.
And they can never support our dear leader enough. So I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent constitutional conservative patriot.
Oh, God.
And so this is bad news for House races where the money's gone. The small donor money's gone. There's no lists. Trump owns the lists. Republican. That's what I am convinced. Now, here we go. I'm speculating. I broke my promise.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
I'm speculating that that's why the RNC is paying his legal bills, is in exchange for the win red lists. And that once he announces his candidacy, they can no longer pay his
legal bills.
Legal bills is because they'll have to formulate their own lists at that point. So it's not good news. None of this is good news for the Republicans who, let's face it, in January of this year, had what we thought was going to be a drop kick into taking back the House, taking a Senate seat or two. Mitch McConnell was threatening to resign if he didn't get a Senate majority. Now he's saying, well, it's going to be close.
I'm going to move to Canada. I'm going to go to Canada.
Well, none of those major candidates that Trump endorsed are doing well in the polling.
No. Well, they're terrible. They're
terrible.
They're just fucking terrible. The debate committee apparently took pity on Herschel Walker, and they're going to give the subject matter of the questions that they're going to ask to the candidates before the debate.
It's going to make Sarah Palin look like Abraham Lincoln.
It will. It will. And it's just...
I am very sorry for anyone who is brain damaged playing football. I am sorry about that.
Yeah, don't run for the Senate.
I don't think any of them should run for the U.S. Senate.
No. Well, and I accept the fact that perhaps Herschel Walker has suffered some traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, I do.
Are all of the hundreds of thousands of people that voted for him also suffering from traumatic brain injury? Because
they're suffering from some sort of trauma. Because I'm telling you, if you have to go back and deny the death of John F. Kennedy, Sr., to get through the day, something happened to you as a child. I'm sorry about that too.
The only place you're allowed to deny the death of John F. Kennedy is in Bubba Hotep, the movie, with John Campbell. That's it. That's the only place, not John Campbell, Bruce Campbell. John Campbell's long dead, and Bruce Campbell's alive and well. But yeah, that's the only place you're allowed to pretend that John Kennedy is living in a senior citizen home and is a black man. Other than that, it's off limits, and everyone knows it. It's a rule that we all abide by.
All right, what are you going to talk about next, Driftglass?
Well, the funniest damn thing I saw this week. I just sit basically with my feet up for like 3 hours a day watching people trip over their own dicks all over Twitter and social media.
He doesn't do that.
I don't do that. No. But it's hard sometimes to pick out the single dumbest, funniest thing. And usually it's a crossover episode. It's some person who is just a mope who intersects with some person who's just an idiot or a hack or a fraud or a fascist. And this week, I got to say, Hugh Hewitt, the cyborg sent from the future to destroy America, retweeting
TM Driftglass.
Yes. Yeah, that's TM, the Terminator, and frankly, TM Harlan Ellison. But we're not going to really. Harlan's long gone, and I believe he left me in his will the right to that expression. So, anyway, Hugh Hewitt retweeting Andrew Yang's idiotic opinion about the search of Mar-a-Lago was very close to the funniest thing I've seen all week. Andrew Yang clearly does not know when to keep his mouth shut. Mm-hmm. And very much like Glenn Greenwald during the peak Glenn Greenwald years, every headline, no matter how tragic or complex, is an excuse to jump into the middle of it with both feet and sell his third-party shit.
And they learned that from Newt Gingrich.
They did.
And now the verb blame Democrats is Newt Gingrich's chick. Right.
And this time, I'm not going to be able to quote exactly, and I wrote a post about this called Hugh Hewitt, Andrew Yang, and one legal expert walk into a bar exam. Because it's Andrew Yang leads a forward party that has assiduously avoided taking any position on anything.
Mm-hmm. Except ranked choice voting.
Except ranked choice voting and open primaries. And ranked choice voting is fine. It's not a basis for a party. And open primaries is never going to happen because that's not what parties do.
Right.
However, he finally staked out a position. I assume as the founder of the party, this is the official forward position, that he approves of Donald Trump wiping his ass with the Constitution.
Man.
And I was stunned because it was like, oh, yeah, I'm no big fan of Donald Trump, but this thing, this raid, this whatever, and Hugh Hewitt was just on it like ugly on an ape. He just said, oh, yeah, I'll retweet this. And it's like, oh, because you just can't leave well enough alone. You can't keep your mouth shut. There's a bunch of headlines, a bunch of things are trending. I need to wedge my stupid party into the middle of it to get your money into my pocket. And he did. And it was just breathtaking because it was Hugh Hewitt, subject of many things I've written, and this third-party grift, which I've written about for many years, joining hands to jump right off the cliff into a subject they should never have touched with a 10-foot pole.
I want you to talk about book writing.
Yeah. On the subject of writing a book, I have never written a book. I've written magazine articles, long form, short form, so have you. Writing is work. I don't know if you know this, but putting words together in a row that people will read and enjoy, and sometimes actually pay you for, is actual work. And writing a book is a lot of work. I know lots of people who've written books, and it's a serious undertaking. And everything that happens from the moment you decide to write a book to the moment it is published That's all unpaid labor. Mm-hmm. That's why most novelists I know are half of a spousal team, the other half of whom has a good job with medical care.
Or they have an academic position that they've had for long enough to have tenure. Yeah.
Or they have tenure. It's not for the faint of heart, and it is tough work. Why write a book at all? Because I get questions and requests, and dude, when are you going to write a book? You've got, I literally, this is published and unpublished. I crossed the threshold of 11,000 posts this week on my blog, which is a goddamn lot of posts. And a lot of that is, throwaways and whatnot. But there's some awfully good writing in there that spans 17 plus years. So the first reason to write is the artistic answer, because you can't not do it. Because you are compelled by something inside you to write the thing down, to get it out of your system. And this Faulkner quote comes to mind when I think about that answer, which is, this is William Faulkner talking about writing. The writer's only responsibility is to his art. He will be completely ruthless if he is a good one. He has a dream. It anguishes him so much he must get rid of it. He has no peace until then. Everything goes by the board. Honor, pride, decency, security, happiness, all to get the book written. If a writer has to rob his mother, he will not hesitate. And now my favorite line of the whole thing. The ode on a Grecian urn is worth any number of old ladies, which is true. So artistically, if you're compelled to write a book, then you write a book. You have no choice. The second reason is financially. And financially, it is not a good bet. Back when I was going to school for writing and was coming out of school and doing a lot more fiction writing, all the authors I knew were running the opposite direction. They were all going off to join Leo Burnett or ad firms or work for digital video housing or writing scripts, because the whole economics of writing books was getting pretty ugly. Once you average it out, the typical author makes less than minimum wage. So let's talk about some books that were written in the last couple of weeks, or published in the last couple of weeks. There's a book by Washington Post columnist Dana Milbank. That's currently the toast of the DC political book establishment. It's called The Destructionists, the 25-year crack-up of the Republican Party. And in it, Mr. Milbank argues, this is going to blow your mind, Blue Gal, that long before Trump appeared in 2015, the GOP had lost its mind.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. In fact, the wheels started coming off during the 1990s, according to him. It's the 25-year history of the GOP losing their mind. And paired with Dana Milbank's book, there's also a book by historian and Vanderbilt professor named Nicole Hemmer called The Conservative Revolutionaries Who Remade American Politics in the 1990s. Is this sounding familiar to anyone? Now, these books are crowding out the previous toast of the DC book world, which is Why We Did It, A Dark Ride on the Republican Road to Hell by Bulwark's very own Tim Miller.
Right.
By the way, if anyone within the sound of my voice is going to Tim Miller's book thing in St. Louis, Friday or Saturday, he's having a book reading on Friday, and I think he's doing a podcast on Saturday. It's 90 miles from where we live. Please ask him from me whether he's now willing to admit that the left was actually right about the right all along. He seems very close to being willing to admit that. So give him a little push, if you will, on my behalf. Tell him the Lannisters send their regards. Now, both Miller's book and Milbank's books have gotten huge boosts from the author's contacts within the DC media ecosystem. But neither of them, frankly, are breaking any new ground. That's what is so kind of fascinating about it.
I can name 6 or 7 books off the top of my head. Steve Bernanke, the first few chapters of his book are all about 1994 and Newt Gingrich, and that was the beginning of the end. Anybody with eyes who's studied this stuff knows that the decline of sanity within the Republican Party started at least with Reagan.
Yeah.
And the end of the fairness doctrine. People know that.
Well, here's an example.
And people have written about it. It's not new ground, like you say.
No. Yeah. And yet there's still this incredible bias brought on by the mainstream media, by the Beltway media, and the never-Trumpers who have colonized it to limit speculation about what went wrong with the GOP to 2016 and beyond. Nobody wants, because all of them were in on it before that. Everyone who wasn't spit out by the party by 2016 was in on the destruction of the party that led to the moment that made Trump possible. They were all guilty. And they don't want to admit that because their whole job is having opinions about politics.
Well, and their whole job is to fill the space, as I say many times, between pharmaceutical commercials.
Oh, yeah.
And so these books, rehashing books that have already been written and covering them. We've talked about who owns these book companies and who are the publicists and what their relationship is with the bookers on these TV shows.
Absolutely.
And it's all as incestuous as the day is long.
So let me give you a couple of examples just for fun. Your friend and mine, John Amato, along with Dave Nywert, published a book entitled Over the Cliff, How Obama's Election Drove the American Right Insane in 2010. It was funny and thoughtful and detailed and got a lot of nice blurbs from fellow liberals. And the mainstream media would not touch it with a barge pole.
Right.
In 2006, Watergate's own John Dean, 2006, published Conservatives Without a Conscience. And in 2008, he followed it up with Broken Government, How Republican Rule Destroyed the Legislative, Executive, and Judicial Branches. They were both celebrated by us in the liberal blogosphere, and the Beltway media completely ignored them because they didn't want to hear that shit. In 2007, Kevin Phillips, who was one of the architects of Nixon's Southern strategy, published American Theocracy, The Perils and Politics of Radical Religion, Oil, and Borrowing Money in the 21st Century. And it's uncompromising, it's brutal, and it's about what the GOP majority has done to this country and why people are unwilling to talk about it. Again, that was in 2007. And last but not least, Tom Hartman cranks out one of these books every 3 months.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, given the sheer tonnage of stuff, you don't need to go to my blog. You should, and you should, contribute to it. But you don't need to. You don't need to go to Blue Gal's blog. There's a ton of material out there that documents all this shit. So why is it in 2022, Dana Milbank and Tim Miller are tearing up the place with this revelation that the Republican Party's lost its mind? And that's because it has become profitable. It's become less dangerous for the people that actually drive book sales to take on that message.
Yep.
So Dana Milbank gets to use the entire resources of the Washington Post and the Beltway media to promote his book. Tim Miller gets to use the Bulwark and Rolling Stone and the fact that he's an MSNBC contributor to sell his book. John Amato didn't get any of that stuff.
Right.
None of these people got any of that promotion. That's how you change minds. So if you're in the business of writing a book to change people's minds, you need a huge promotional machine. And frankly, they're not interested in what liberals have to say. They never will be. So that's why. Because
of the accountability problem that they have.
Right. And the idea that part of any honest liberal critique of the right would have to mention the fact that prior to 2016, all your favorite Never-Trumpers were in on the conspiracy. And after 2016, all of your favorite Never-Trumpers are lying about their participation in the conspiracy. And and since they now basically own the message, they've been given seats at every table. That's never going to happen. So,
and they don't want Joe Scarborough to yell at them.
No. Even though after the cameras go, off, they hug each other and laugh about what they put over on the stupid audience.
We're going to do a news roundup.
All right.
Of a very busy news week.
Very, very busy news week. The FBI executed a federal search warrant at Mar-a-Lago connected to the 15 boxes of presidential documents that Donald Trump stole from the White House.
Now that the Trump campaign has lost its lawsuit against Omarosa, remember her? And the court has held the campaign's NDA unenforceable. The campaign has given up and is releasing everyone from their NDA.
Oh no.
Goodness.
Currently, there's only one rat in the house. There's going to be 100 rats talking.
Yep.
As you probably already know, newly revealed photos show that at least 2 occasions that Donald Trump apparently tried to flush documents down the toilet.
And why you would save that information until August of 2022.
Book deal, baby.
Is a failure on your part. You're going to hell for that. Trump's legal team is in direct communication with the Justice Department officials about executive privilege issues related to its criminal probe into the January 6th attack. The conversations are focused on whether Trump would be able to shield conversations he had with witnesses while he was president from a federal criminal grand jury.
This week, Lawrence O'Donnell began his Tuesday episode of his show, The Last Word, by showing a fundraising email he received from Donald Trump's fundraising team. On Monday, the FBI raided Trump's Mar-a-Lago home, actually hotel, in Palm Beach, Florida, reportedly searching for classified documents, etc., etc. O'Donnell showed the email on the screen as he read it aloud, and here's the email. Mar-a-Lago is raided, the email began. The radical left is corrupt. We must return the power to the people. Please rush in a donation immediately to publicly stand with me against this never-ending witch hunt. I was wrong about them, Blue Gal.
What?
They do have one plan, and that is to raise money.
Money from rubes, yes. The D.C. Court of Appeals has just ruled that Trump must turn over his tax returns to the House Ways and Means Committee.
Oh, no.
The Supreme Court isn't going to even hear that case. It was 3-0.
Yeah, that's not going anywhere. The Department of Justice has executed a search warrant, wait for it, on Republican member of Congress Scott Perry. They confiscated his phone. Perry asked for a pardon for January 6th, and Mark Meadows was seen burning documents after a meeting with Perry. None of that is good. None of that is good. And they gave him his phone back, and he didn't want to admit on Fox that he got his phone back. No.
They took an image of his phone and gave it back to him.
You can't raise money off of that.
You can't raise money off of that if they didn't steal your phone and take it from you by force. The January 6th committee, this is just updating from last week, they have received the 2 years' worth of Alex Jones phone messages.
This week, Harvard University kicked Republican Elise Stefanik off its advisory committee. Stefanik was among the 147 House Republicans who voted against certifying President-elect Joe Biden's electoral victory.
This week, Donald Trump took the Fifth Amendment over 400 times and refused to answer questions from the New York State Attorney General's office on Wednesday. Previously, Donald Trump had said that, you see, the mob takes the Fifth. If you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth Amendment?
Yeah. Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, our president, Joe Biden, signed legislation providing $52 billion in subsidies to the semiconductor industry. The CHIPS and Science Act provides $10 billion for regional technology hubs, a 25% investment tax credit for the manufacture of semiconductors and related equipment, and authorizes roughly $100 billion in spending over the next 5 years on scientific research, including more than $80 billion for the National Science Foundation.
President Joe Biden signed ratification documents for Finland and Sweden to join the NATO alliance.
Woohoo! Welcome aboard, guys. The President Joe Biden administration authorized a $1 billion additional package of ammunition, weapons, and equipment for Ukraine. This is the largest delivery of military aid yet.
I'm praying for Ukraine.
We all are.
The Democratic Senate passed the largest investment in U.S. history to counter climate change, putting the nation on a path to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by up to 40% below their 2005 levels by 2030. That's 10 years away.
It is.
Every single Republican voted against it.
Indiana became the first state to pass a near total ban on abortion since the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade. The bill, which will go into effect on September 15th, allows abortion only in the cases of rape and incest and lethal fetal anomalies. Doctors in the state who perform illegal abortions will lose their medical licenses.
On a side note, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has welcomed businesses that want to move from Indiana back to Illinois because they don't like all of that.
You can leave the dark ages and join the 21st century. It's right across the border.
Right across the state line. Yep. Mm-hmm. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis suspended Tampa's elected prosecutor for pledging not to prosecute abortions and gender-affirming care, accusing Andrew Warren of, quote, incompetence and willful defiance of his duties, unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah, it ain't over, Ron.
No. The Justice Department has charged 4 current and former Louisville police officers with violating Breonna Taylor's civil rights. Breonna Taylor was shot and killed by police in 2020 while she was sleeping.
Elon Musk, remember him?
Yeah.
I muted him on Twitter, so I don't know what's going on with him. What's going on with him? Oh, he has sold off nearly $7 billion worth of shares in Tesla as he gets ready and gets his finances in order and ahead of his court battle with Twitter.
Tisk, tisk. Speaking of cars, The U.S. gas prices have fallen below an average of $4 a gallon, retreating to the lowest level since March amid a global decline in oil prices. Thanks, Joe Biden.
And with this quote, Andrew Cuomo submits his public resume to Fox News. DOJ must immediately explain its reason for its raid, and it must be more than a search for inconsequential archives, or it will be viewed as a political tactic and undermine any future credible investigation and legitimacy of January 6th investigations. I guess Merrick Garland called that bluff.
Yeah.
Just this afternoon, Thursday afternoon, with like a 3-minute press conference. We've asked for the judge to unseal the search warrant and the receipt of properties taken. Yeah.
Yeah. So, fuck you. And then he walked off stage, dropped the mic and left, which is exactly what he should have done.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing what we did because it's the law. I defend the people I work with. They're tremendous public servants. We're working as hard as we can to get you the information you need, but I'm not going to break the law to do it. Garland out. Mm-hmm. Boom. Oh, and as you said, someone on Twitter said, tell Trump it was me.
Tell Trump. I want him to know it was me.
It was me, which is another Game of Thrones callback. Yeah.
And the other thing we love about this whole afternoon today was 30 minutes of Merrick Garland podium.
Yeah, empty podium.
The lectern, the empty lectern.
Oh.
Let the cameras roll and wait for me, motherfuckers. That's it.
First of all, it brought back, flashbacks of 2016, including just Katie Tur vamping for 20 minutes.
For 30 minutes, yeah.
Secondly, I really wanted Merrick Garland in my imagination to be just sitting in the green room with his feet up waiting. And then he comes on stage
Trump does. Yeah.
He comes on stage with house slippers and a bathrobe. Said, "Oh,
and
hey,
Diet Coke. You should come with a Diet Coke." Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Were you waiting for me? Oh, okay. Well, here's what's going on.
We didn't mention Beto O'Rourke using the word motherfucker.
Go. There was a big news week. It was hard to keep track of. It really was.
He just called out a Greg Abbott supporter laughing at the death of children and called him a motherfucker. And that breaks through. I also wanted to point out I was watching for work this morning the latest Daily Show Jordan Klepper video. And middle child is visiting this week. And she walked by my computer and said, "Oh, I know him. He's hilarious." And I thought, this is how the 20-year-olds are finding out about politics.
Yeah. Oh, and just as an experiment, while we waited for Merrick Garland, we were doing the steeplechase. And I said, I wonder what's on news.
Driftglass with the remote was doing the steeplechase.
I was going, ooh, oh,
I was working with yarn at the time.
You were.
Yes.
And I said to myself aloud so my wife could hear it, I wonder what's on Newsmax right now. And you said, I'm pretty sure we don't get Newsmax on this TV. And I said, let's find out, shall we? And I pressed the microphone button on the space age remote and said, Newsmax. And it took me to a station I'd never been to before.
No, this television didn't know what happened.
No, it was like the screen went black for a minute, it seemed like. Yeah. And it was the television's way of saying, are you sure you want to do this? Is this really what you want to do? And it took us into the 4-digit range, into the thousands. It's so far away.
1,115. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And there was Mick Mulvaney.
Yes.
And some woman named, I forget, Bianca.
And boy, she looked exactly the way you would expect a Newsmax news babe to look.
Yeah, she was hurrying between one appointment at what we might call a knocking shop and another. And she just stopped off for a second to read the news.
Her hair was full and mussy. Yes.
Oh, it was everything. And we just shuddered a moment and said, let us never do this again.
We will never turn to this channel again.
No, we have brought in
someone. It was John Bolton first.
Yeah, it was John. I forgot.
First thing, she was talking to John Bolton, and then she switched over to talk to Mick Mulvaney.
And John Bolton said, want a mustache ride? No, he didn't. But it was implied by his big, ugly face with a mustache. It was definitely
implied that there were mustache rides to be had.
Yeah. So we're bringing in somebody tomorrow to burn some sage around the TV and purify the place.
Right.
And all in all, it was an exercise in what's possible and what should not be possible with cable news. But Newsmax exists, and it's at the opposite end of the universe, and we're never going to visit there again. Now, someone who I'm sure watches Newsmax a lot showed up in our local news this week.
Mm-hmm.
You might remember last week, Darren Bailey was having problems. Darren Bailey is the crackpot right-wing Republican who is the party's nominee for governor in our beautiful state, who is going to lose very badly to J.B. Pritzker, maybe even historically. I mean,
maybe even he keeps digging. Let's put it that, like a lot of Republicans this year, he keeps digging.
And I entitled this portion of our show, Darren Bailey and the Imaginary Rabbis, because last week, Darren Bailey decided to compare, or footage came out of him comparing abortion with the Holocaust. Now, a whole bunch of people, including members of his own party, said, dude, you got to walk that shit back. That is nope. But instead, and this is thanks to the redoubtable Rich Miller and Capital Facts, the last sort of honest reporter in the Springfield metropolitan area, Darren Bailey said, no, the Jewish rabbis, they said, no, you're actually right to compare abortion to the Holocaust. Which set a whole lot of people wondering a whole lot of things, like, which Jewish rabbis are you talking about? The Jewish rabbis? Are they all there? Secondly, are there rabbis who aren't Jewish, perhaps? I don't know. This seems to be a weird thing that you don't understand at all. So, very much like Andrew Yang, Darren Bailey does not know when to keep his mouth fucking shut. So he decided.
And there was one woman who wrote into Twitter to say she really doesn't want to hear the names of Darren Bailey's imaginary rabbis, like Rabbi Bagelberg.
Yeah.
And I said, oh no, Darren Bailey's imaginary rabbis, that's my favorite Scattergories category.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it was a band I formed briefly in high school, but it was deemed to be too offensive, and we went back to calling ourselves,
Well, you remember there was a band when I went to Brandeis in the 80s called Archbishop's Enema Fetish.
Oh, yeah. No, everyone has a phase where they name.
There just are offensive names to bands, yes.
So, no, they didn't do that. The Jewish rabbis did not do that. No one, including Bailey's campaign, has any idea where the Jewish rabbis are.
No.
But pretty much everyone, including leaders of his own party, are lining up to denounce him.
Yes.
Republican mayor of, I forget which town, Park Ridge, Burr Ridge. State Representative Steve Reich, staunch criticism. Darren Bailey has crossed a line in which you do not cross. House Minority Leader Jim Durkin, and on and on and on and on. This was followed by a very long list, again, all thanks to Rich Miller, long and growing list of prominent Illinois humans and institutions condemning Bailey for being exactly the kind of lumpen, bigoted asshat that GOP base voters love.
Yeah.
The list includes, but is not limited to, the Anti-Defamation League of the Midwest.
Thank you.
The Springfield Jewish Federation.
Thank you.
And the President Emeritus of the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center.
You're welcome.
Governor Pritzker piped in to say, look, as a man of the Jewish faith myself, who has built a Holocaust museum, let me just say.
I'm not laughing at the Holocaust Museum.
No one is laughing at the Holocaust Museum.
No one is laughing at the Holocaust Museum.
It is, and if you listen to Darren Bailey, he sounds like the biggest, dumbest hick anyway. So he over-enunciates it in that sort of creepy, never left the farm, kind of eyeing the cows in a lustful way kind of way.
Let's say a prayer. When kids have been shot, let's say a prayer. Let's get on with the campaign and have some hot dogs.
And I would not stoop to insult anyone's accent.
No.
I would simply say that he is the complete package.
Yeah.
He is every cliche of every dim-witted Republican right-wing asshole you could imagine, all packed into one thing, and he can't keep his fucking mouth shut.
No.
So that's why I'm really not worried that, despite the fact that David Brooks had kittens over the fact that our governor spent a few dollars to promote him over his opponent, I think that was money well spent.
Oh, very much so.
And that's all I want to say about Darren Bailey.
But I want to say something just about this week in Illinois, in Springfield.
Yeah.
It's the opening tonight of the Illinois State Fair.
The big state fair.
And yesterday, Governor J.B. Pritzker did one of his favorite things that he gets to do as governor.
Yes.
He unveiled the Illinois State Fair butter cow.
We have a butter cow.
Which is an Illinois butter cow, by the way. It's not a Missouri butter cow or an Indiana butter cow. It's an Illinois butter cow. And this year's butter cow, you can go and look at it on live cam. Just Google Illinois State Fair butter cow live cam. You'll find it. In honor of Ukraine, it has sunflower in its mouth.
Yes. Isn't that
so
sweet?
Nice?
Yeah.
And, but during this unveiling, and the unveiling is, they have the State Fair Junior Miss pageant winner with her crown opening the fair with the butter cow, and she's all very poised and has her tiara on and so forth. And then they had the agricultural director of Illinois give a speech, and then the lieutenant governor Juliana Stratton, who's an African American woman, but is also, man, is she a promoter of Illinois agriculture?
Oh yeah. No.
Black farmers in Illinois.
You better be. In Illinois, you better be, yeah.
And then JB and Mrs. JB, who's Mary Pat, they came forward and they're going to spread the curtains there so you can see the butter cow. And so all that happened, all these speeches and everything. And then the governor's going to take a few questions. Are they going to be about the butter cow, Driftglass?
I've got another butter cow question.
No.
Gonna really nail him with the butter cow. Yeah.
They're going to be about Darren Bailey and the Holocaust question.
Yeah. That's just, And
I'm sitting there going, here is this thing. It's the state fair. It's the butter cow. It's agriculture. And what do reporters want to talk about? Of course they want to talk about the one controversial thing that's going on in this governor's milieu, which is, once again, your opponent is doubling down on diminishing the suffering of the Holocaust. And you could just say, Pritzker just knocked him off the plate, just swung his bat and took care of it.
Yeah, he pointed to the left center. That's where the ball's going to go.
It's going to go right off there.
Boom, off it. Well, yeah.
But even at the butter cow ceremony, he's winning. And it was money well invested to make sure Darren Bailey was your opponent. Democratic Governors Association.
Way to go. Good money. And I just want to point out.
Let's make national news with that, folks.
I just want to point out that Darren Bailey is, on average, smarter than pretty much every Republican senatorial candidate who Donald Trump has endorsed.
Yeah.
He is brighter.
Mehmet Oz now has taken a $50,000 tax break that is supposed to be reserved for Pennsylvania farmers.
There's two things wrong with that sentence, Blue Gal.
He has a $50,000 tax break on his $3.1 million mansion that he bought to establish Pennsylvania residency. It is a house to which he has not moved in yet.
Yeah. What do they grow there?
But he got the tax break.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
They grow residency there. It's this plant called residency.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania residency. And so, again, John Fetterman just says he did this. That's all he has to say is, Farmer Mehmet Oz.
Farmer Oz.
Fake Pennsylvanian, fake farmer.
Driving his
he's going to get votes. Oz is going to get votes in Pennsylvania. He's not going to win.
Of course he will.
He is just kicking himself over and over again. All right.
Well, Bailey will get votes in Illinois. There's no doubt about that. There are people who just, and that's where, and I realize it's dangerous and we're playing with fire and we've been through this with Trump, et cetera, but there's a great clarification coming for all of us on the left. I mean, those of us, we've known this, for decades now, but the diametric opposition of the two parties at this point is so clear. The Republican Party having nothing going for it but access to a violent mob. And every policy they have around all of their marketing, all of their campaigning, all of their hysteria is all focused on keeping the mob stupid and violent and pointed in the right direction.
Driftglass, I gotta say, we've noticed over and over again. We didn't take time to do this, and we probably should have. The number of media fails this week.
Oh yeah,
in terms of blaming Democrats for shit. And I'll just give one example. Daytime MSNBC. I was listening to it in the car, and this daytime woman saying, more bad news for Joe Biden is that 59% of Americans think the country's going in the wrong direction. That does not bode well for the midterms.
Poor Joe Biden.
And now we're going to do some man in the street interviews with people to find out what's on their minds in Florida.
Why do you hate Joe Biden?
Well, why do you think the country's going in the wrong direction? Do you think country's going in the wrong direction? Why do you think it's going in the wrong direction? First person said, my right to an abortion has been taken away.
Damn you, Joe Biden.
Damn you, Joe Biden. Second person said, my rent is going up in 2 months, and I don't know how I'm going to pay the increase in my rent. Damn you, Joe Biden.
Damn you, Joe Biden.
Now, I don't know if she's going to blame Joe Biden for that or not. Who knows? But the point was that these person on the street interviews about why is the country going in the wrong direction had much more to do with Republicans. I think the third one was like healthcare, insulin and healthcare and prescription drugs and stuff like that. It was just crazy. People think the country's going in the wrong direction because Republicans are blocking solutions to problems that people want fixed.
It's going in the wrong direction because the Republicans have their teeth sunk into our leg and they're dragging us backwards. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's why we're going in the wrong direction. The answer is not to say, well, golly, Joe Biden, why aren't you taking away the Republican Party's ability to be Republicans?
Well, yeah. And there are plenty of people asking that on the left. I get that. Right. I get that. Why can't you just sign an executive order and make the Republicans go away? Watch out for this both-siderist bullshit and trying to make the midterms a horse race and prop up the destruction that Republicans have done to their own cause in less than a year. Each week we post to our Facebook page and website an Internet Kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week's Internet Kitty is Rhiannon. She's all eyes. And in this picture, she is clawing her scratching post into submission. And of course, Rhiannon eats freshly poured cat food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve Pet Store Perfection or Dollar Store Direct, your cats will sit on the kitchen floor and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured. Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh, my Lord, it's freshly poured. And go take a look at Rhiannon's beautiful eyes at our Facebook page or website. You can send your Internet Kitty, dog, or other pet to us, or barnyard animal, whatever, to our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, or you can also write to both of us. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go Postal Unions. Letter on the air unless you say otherwise. #Fire to Joy. Don't forget our gourmet coffee guideline. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. This is not charity. This is our job. This is how we pay our bills. Approximately 1% of our listeners support this podcast with a contribution, and you can too. See our website, proleftpod.com, for details. Our PayPal, postal address information, GoFundMe, Patreon. We have a few new Patreons this week. We really appreciate that. All that information is there at proleftpod.com. Please share our show on social media. And if you love this podcast, go visit paypal.me/proleftpodcast and leave us a tip. There's also a spot there to leave us a note. And thank you so much for doing that. Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties have been fundraising off of being under FBI investigation for years.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
Professional Left Podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license, copyright 2022, BGBG Productions Incorporated.